Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing you need government permission just to buy groceries, fill your gas tank, or even access your own money. Sounds like science fiction, right? But it's the very real path that digital ID systems are pushing us toward. Once introduced, they don't just make life easier, they make life controlled. And history shows us something important. When it's free, you are the product, and once freedoms are handed over, they rarely come back. Do you remember when you first got a Social Security number? It was supposed to be just for retirement benefits, nothing more. They even printed "not for identification purposes" right on the cards. But look what happened over the decades. Slowly, quietly, that number became the key to everything. Your credit, your health care, your employment, your banking. What started as a simple retirement program became the foundation of a surveillance system most people don't even realize exists. Now they want to do the same thing, but this time, it's not just a number on a card you can leave at home. This time, it's a digital system that knows where you are, what you're buying, who you're talking to, and what you're thinking, based on what you search for online. They're calling it a digital ID, and they're wrapping it up in the same promises they always use: convenience, security, efficiency. But here's what a digital ID really means in plain English. It's like having a government agent following you around with a clipboard, writing down everything you do, everywhere you go, everyone you talk to, and every penny you spend. Except this agent never sleeps, never takes a break, and never forgets anything. Ever. The digital ID they're pushing is essentially a unified digital passport that ties together your identity with your finances, your healthcare records, your travel history, and your online activity. Every website you visit, every purchase you make, every doctor's appointment you attend, it all gets connected to one central profile that the government can access whenever they want, for whatever reason they decide is important. They're marketing this as the ultimate convenience. Think how easy it'll be, they say. No more fumbling with multiple cards or passwords. One simple digital identity for everything. But you know what? The most convenient thing for a prison guard is when all the inmates are locked in their cells. Convenient for whom, exactly? This isn't some far-off possibility we're talking about. Right now, across the Atlantic, our allies in Britain are rolling out something called the Brit card, and watching what's happening there is like getting a preview of coming attractions. The British government started with all the same friendly language we're hearing here. They said it would streamline services, enhance security, and prevent another scandal like what happened to the Caribbean immigrants who couldn't prove their right to be in the country after living there for decades. They even claimed it would stop people from crossing the English Channel in small boats. Though, anyone with half a brain can see that's complete nonsense. People working in the underground economy aren't exactly worried about carrying official government identification. But here's where it gets disturbing, and why every American should be paying attention. The Brit card isn't just about proving who you are online. It's about building a centralized, state-controlled digital identity system that connects your finances, your medical history, your travel movements, your social media activity, and even your real-world social interactions. It's like a digital dog collar, and once it's clipped around your neck, you can't take it off. Now, the British government is calling it optional for now. Sound familiar? Remember when they said the same thing about vaccine passports? Oh, it's just temporary, they said. Just for public health, they promised. Nobody's forcing you to get one, they insisted. But within weeks, you couldn't get into a restaurant or fly on an airplane without showing your papers. I'm pretty sure the Brit card will be following exactly the same playbook. Once these systems are in place, they become incredibly easy to expand, quietly, incrementally, until suddenly you need your digital ID to apply for a job, then to rent an apartment, then to take public transportation, then to open a bank account. And before you know it, what was once optional becomes absolutely essential for anything you want to do in modern society. Here's the thing that should make every American's blood run cold. This same pattern is already starting here in the United States. We might not have a Brit card, but we're building the infrastructure for the same system, piece by piece, regulation by regulation, convenience by convenience. Think about how much has already changed just in the past few years. Your driver's license is becoming a real ID whether you like it or not. Your banking is moving digital whether you want it to or not. More and more services require you to verify your identity online using systems that track and store everything you do. Each step seems reasonable by itself, but when you connect the dots, the picture that emerges should terrify anyone who values freedom. The question isn't whether the government can legally create a mandatory digital ID system. They can't just wave a magic wand and make it happen overnight. Any mandatory system would require new legislation, just like when they tried this before with the Identity Cards Act back in the 2000s in Britain, which, by the way, got repealed because people fought back against it. But here's what's different now. They don't need to make it legally mandatory if they can make it practically impossible to live without. And that's exactly what's happening. Look around you. How much of your life already depends on digital systems? Your banking, your healthcare, your shopping, your communication with family and friends. Each of these systems is already collecting data about you, already tracking your behavior, already building a profile of who you are and what you do. A unified digital ID doesn't create surveillance, it just makes the surveillance more efficient. And once that infrastructure is in place, flipping the switch from optional to required becomes as simple as changing a few lines of code. No dramatic legislation needed. No big announcements. Just quiet changes to terms of service and compliance requirements that make it impossible to function in modern society without your digital papers. This is what I call the incremental trap, and it's how every surveillance state in history has been built, not through dramatic coups or sudden oppression, but through 1,000 small compromises that each seem reasonable by themselves. First, they make it convenient. Look how easy this is. No more waiting in lines or filling out paperwork. Then they make it preferred. You can still do things the old way, but the new way is so much faster. Then they make it standard. Most people are using the digital system now, so we're phasing out the old options. And finally, they make it mandatory. For security reasons, we now require digital verification for all transactions. Each step builds on the last, and each step normalizes a little more control, a little more surveillance, a little more dependency on systems you don't control and can't opt out of. By the time people realize what's happened, resistance is painted as extremism, and going back to the old way becomes practically impossible. We've seen this exact pattern with so many things that are now part of daily life. Remember when you could fly without showing identification? Remember when you could open a bank account with just a handshake and your word? Remember when you could use cash for everything and nobody thought it was suspicious? Each of those freedoms was traded away for promises of security and convenience, and each time we were told it would never be expanded beyond its original purpose. But that's not how power works. Power expands. It always expands. Give someone a tool for control, and they will find new ways to use it, no matter what they promised when you first handed it over. And that brings us to the most dangerous part of the digital ID system. It's not just about identification. It's about tying your identity to your money, and when the government controls both your identity and your money, they control you completely. This is where central bank digital currencies come into play, programmable money that can be turned on and off like a light switch. Imagine your bank account, but instead of being controlled by a private bank that at least has to compete for your business, it's controlled by the same government that decides what's acceptable speech, what's acceptable behavior, and what's acceptable thinking. With a digital ID tied to programmable money, here's what becomes possible. Your account gets flagged because you donated to the wrong political candidate. Your transactions get frozen because you attended the wrong rally. Your spending gets restricted because you bought too much of something the government thinks is bad for you. Your access to your own money gets cut off because you shared the wrong article on social media. This is exactly what's already happening in other parts of the world where digital currencies and social credit systems are being tested. The technology exists. The motivation exists. The infrastructure is being built. The only question is whether Americans will recognize the threat before it's too late. And the thing about this system from a control perspective is that it's invisible. When they freeze your account, there's no dramatic arrest, no public trial, no obvious oppression that might spark sympathy or outrage. Your card just stops working. Your payments just get declined. Your access just gets suspended for security reasons while they investigate your account activity. You become unpersoned without anyone even noticing because in a digital system, you only exist when the system says you exist. And if the system says you don't exist, well, good luck proving otherwise. But it doesn't stop with money, because money is just the first domino in a much larger system of control. Once your financial life is digital and trackable, everything else follows. Your healthcare becomes digital and trackable. Your travel becomes digital and trackable. Your communications become digital and trackable. Your very thoughts, as expressed through your online searches and social media activity, become digital and trackable. Suddenly, the government doesn't just know what you're doing, they know what you're thinking. And in a system where your access to everything depends on your compliance with government approval, thinking the wrong thoughts becomes a very expensive mistake. Picture this. It's a Tuesday morning, and you go to check into your doctor's appointment using your digital ID, just like you've done dozens of times before. But today, the system pauses. A message appears. Account verification needed. Please contact customer service. Your appointment gets cancelled. Your prescription refill gets delayed. Your insurance claims get put on hold. What happened? Well, maybe you shared an article about natural immunity that the algorithm flagged as medical misinformation. Maybe you questioned a new policy online. Maybe you liked the wrong post from a friend. The system doesn't tell you exactly what triggered the flag that would make it too easy to avoid in the future. The goal isn't to educate you, it's to make you anxious, uncertain, and compliant. This is the world we're building, one convenience at a time. A world where every website you visit, every purchase you make, every place you go, every person you talk to gets added to your permanent digital record. And unlike the old days, when you could pay cash and walk away anonymously, or when different parts of your life were separate and private, everything becomes connected in one massive surveillance web. The genius of it, if you can call something this sinister genius, is that it happens gradually enough that each step feels normal. Today, you need your digital ID to renew your driver's license. Next month, you need it to register to vote. Next year, you need it to collect Social Security. The year after that, you need it to get hired for any job. And eventually, trying to live without it becomes like trying to live without electricity or running water, technically possible, but practically impossible in modern society. Now, you might be thinking, but I've got nothing to hide. If you're not doing anything wrong, why should you be worried? And I understand that sentiment, it's natural, it's human, and it's exactly what they're counting on. But here's the thing. Doing nothing wrong isn't a fixed standard. What's acceptable today might be illegal tomorrow. What's encouraged today might be criminalized next year. The same people who decide what counts as wrong are the ones who would control your digital ID, your access to money, and your ability to participate in society. Think about how much the definition of acceptable has changed just in your lifetime. Things your grandparents said freely are now considered hate speech. Political opinions that were mainstream when you were young are now called extremism. Medical questions that doctors used to encourage are now labeled as dangerous misinformation. The speed of this change is accelerating, not slowing down. And in a system where your ability to live depends on staying within the boundaries of acceptability, those boundaries become a moving target that you can never quite pin down. The result is self-censorship, self-policing, and self-silencing, which is exactly the goal. You see, the most effective censorship isn't the kind where they drag you away in the middle of the night. It's the kind where you do it to yourself because you're afraid of losing access to everything you need to survive. When your money, your healthcare, your housing, and your employment all depend on your digital ID staying in good standing, you become very, very careful about what you say, what you think, and who you associate with. Your right to privacy isn't conditional on your obedience to the government. Your freedom to speak your mind isn't something you have to earn through compliance. Your ability to control your own money isn't a privilege granted by bureaucrats. These are fundamental rights that belong to you simply because you're human. But in a digital ID system tied to programmable money, all of these rights become permissions that can be revoked at any time for any reason by people you've never met and can't hold accountable. And that's the key word, accountability. Who's making these decisions about your digital identity? Who decides what behavior is acceptable? Who determines what speech is allowed? Who controls the algorithms that flag your account? Who reviews the appeals when the system makes a mistake? the uncomfortable truth is that most of these decisions are being made by unelected